Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started being respectful of everyone's time, and Daniel always gives us a full show, so we want to give him all the time that he deserves. So welcome back for those of you who are returning, and welcome to the new folks for our second webinar in our March Media Madness Technology Tuesday online series. We have a full show today, and it's going to have a lot of great content. I'm Jennifer Lisinski, Vice President of Marketing for St. John's, for those of you who are new, and I'm serving as the host again today. Just some housekeeping items. This will be a review for a lot of you, but I'd like to go over some logistical details, and then we'll get started. So as you probably noticed, you were muted upon entry. Please stay muted to ensure the best experience for all guests. If you have questions during the session, please type them into the chat. Just as they come to you, type them in there. We'll have a Q&A portion at the end, but where we'll look at all the questions that are in the chat and answer those first, and then answer any new questions that come in. But that's as you're thinking of them, it's a good way to jot them down. If you're having any problems connecting during the session, please also use the chat function to contact me when I am able to. I'll try to troubleshoot those things and ensure the best experience for you. As I shared last week, for a lot of you, these sessions are just an example of the types of offerings we provide to our residents of St. John's, and there's always something to do and something to learn at our community, so we wanted to give you a sampling of that today. I encourage you to check out our website at stjohnsliving.org. It's a great resource of information about the benefits of independent living and the multitude of amenities we have to offer. Tours are also a great way to experience us firsthand, and we are open for in-person and virtual tours, and we'd love to host you. And the timing is right because we have a special promotion running right now that is only available until the beginning of April, so you'll want to act fast on that. And Stephanie, Dawn, and Cindy, whose contact information was shared in the slides, and it will be shared at the end, they are the people to go to find out more about that, and we'd love to host you for a tour. So now, without further ado, let me introduce our main speaker for this afternoon, and you're well positioned to learn a lot about fake news today. I'm really excited about this one. How do we figure out what is fake news and what to do about it? Daniel Jones is an independent instructor providing older adults with computer, internet, and social networking skills to enhance their lives and keep them connected. His computer courses and seminars break down the barriers of fear and intimidation often associated with learning new technology, providing seniors with a great understanding of the options and tools available through a patient, fun, and easy to learn approach. Daniel provides both private in-home one-to-one lessons as well as group instruction, which I'm sure he'll be doing more of as communities open up and libraries and so forth. He's been teaching to date 5,800 people, which is an incredible number. And in 2010, Daniel received his certificate in gerontology through St. John Fisher College, and he is a certified Eden Alternative Associate. And in July of last year, he celebrated 9 years in business. So congratulations to Daniel. I know we'll learn a lot. The first session was great, and there are videos. If for those of you want to brush up on last week's topic, be sure to check out the videos with the link that I sent. And we'll also have videos as well for this one for those of you who want to just see what we covered and have a look at it again. So thank you again for spending time with us, and it's great to have you here, and we hope you enjoy the workshop. I'm going to do some things here to get Daniel up and running. First, unmute, and then we're going to share the screen here.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and thanks Jen for introducing me. I appreciate everyone joining me today. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will get started. Okay, so before I get started on today's, I do want to remind you about next Tuesday's seminar, which is about digital music. So if you love music and you are looking for new ways to listen to music that you are interested in, I will be talking about Apple Music, the whole kind of the little bit of a history of how digital music started, where we are today with sources like Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music for you. So let's go ahead and get started on today's seminar.
Since you're attacking us, can you give us a question? No, Mr. President-elect.
Go ahead.
Mr. President-elect, since you are attacking our news organization, can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are attacking our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give us a
is
chance to
terrible.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm
us
not
a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
Can you state categorically that nobody... No, Mr. President-elect, that's not
Go ahead.
appropriate.
So today we are going to talk about fake news and how to spot it. So let's go through some of the sources. So it's important that I state up front the different sources that I have used to create this seminar, and I'm always adding to it and updating content. I think it's important whenever teaching or whatever you do is that you have multiple sources so that you get fair and balanced content. So these are just some of the sources that I used to put this together. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about what is fake news, the definition of fake news. I'm going to share with you a bunch of terms that you should know. Some of them you already know, some of them you may not know or may not know the origin of the word. I'm going to talk about deep fakes, what they are, and why you and I need to be aware of them. How to recognize fake news. And I'll also share with you sources and resources that you can access to check on the legitimacy of news. And lastly, we'll talk a little bit about your responsibility, my responsibility, everyone's responsibility when it comes to sharing information and distributing that information. During a press conference along Finnish President Trump took credit for inventing the term fake news. I call the fake news now corrupt news because fake isn't tough enough. And I'm the one that came up with the term. I'm very proud of it, but I think I'm going to switch to corrupt news. President Trump did not invent the word fake news. The term fake news was first used by this gentleman who is an editor for BuzzFeed News. He used this term in 2014 when he was doing some research for the community or for Columbia University libraries. So Trump did not invent the word fake news. That in itself is fake news. Here we have two side-by-side photos of the 2017 presidential inauguration and the 2013 presidential inauguration. And you all may remember this video here.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe.
Now, how do I know this is fake news? Because I was there. I was at the 2017 presidential inauguration. And the picture that you saw, the side-by-side picture that President Trump claims was doctored and so on. That side, let me go back here. Let's go back to that photo here. So these two photos, this was the 2013 inauguration and the 2017 inauguration. This was taken at the same location at the same time. This is at the top of the Capitol monument. Okay. And again, I was there at that inauguration. So I saw the crowd size. I witnessed it for myself. And I got into quite a heated argument with my dad about this, because he also claimed that it was the largest inauguration in the history of all inaugurations. And I said to him, Dad, it's not true. There weren't as many people because I was there. I saw the crowds. I saw the people who attended. Of course, I didn't see every single individual person, but I can speak firsthand that the crowds weren't as large as what he proclaimed. The next day after inauguration was the Women's March on Washington Capitol, and those numbers. And I was in that crowd, and those numbers were huge. So let's talk about definitions of words so that we can all agree on what these words mean. And I'm going to assume that everyone here in this seminar is going to agree that the Merriam-Webster dictionary is a dictionary that I can use to get these definitions that we can all agree on. So what is a fact? A fact is something that has actual existence, an actual occurrence. A piece of information presented as having objective reality. The quality of being actual. Opinion. A view, judgment, or appraisal formed in the mind about a particular matter. There's a huge difference between fact and opinion. And I think that's where emotions kind of get into play. Just because I think something doesn't necessarily mean that it's fact. Opinion, a belief stronger than impression and less strong than positive knowledge.
Understanding the difference between a fact and an opinion isn't difficult. What matters is being able to apply that knowledge responsibly. When someone presents information in the form of a fact, like the blue whale is the largest animal on Earth, they are stating something that can be proven with evidence. That's different from an opinion, like blue whales are the most beautiful whales. Here, they are sharing a personal belief that can't be proven. Think about it this way. The factual statement here is about size, which can be measured and agreed upon. The opinion is about beauty, which cannot be measured and is up to the individual. Being able to tell the difference can help you be more influential and trustworthy. Here's what I mean. Imagine you're a student who must complete a paper about the science of whales. In researching the subject, you find a mix of facts and opinions. For example, in a magazine article, a scientist says, "Whale research needs more funding," and it seems relevant. But then you notice that it's based on a personal belief, which means it's an opinion. Then, on a trustworthy website, you find the statement, "Funding for blue whale research increased by 10% last year." This is a statement of fact that can give your paper more integrity. It's important to remember that a statement of fact can still be true or false. The person who made the statement may be confused or misleading. That's why it's a good idea to verify facts using multiple credible sources. In another example, you're watching a TV show with two guests who disagree. During the debate, they make a number of statements that seem credible. One of the guests mainly shares opinions like, "I think Joe is the best player." The other guest chooses to share factual statements like, Mike is currently ranked #1 in the world. By thinking through the difference between fact and opinion, you can see which guest may be presenting a stronger argument. Or imagine a journalist who is working on a big news story. She interviews a number of people and over time documents both facts and opinions from her sources. While her article might contain quotes that relate opinions, the accuracy and integrity of her article depends on documenting the facts of the situation. To be sure, she researches the factual statements to make sure they are true. As you can see, knowing the difference between facts and opinions is only part of the challenge. The real task is analyzing communication and understanding what represents information that can be trusted and why.
Fake, not true, real or genuine, counterfeit, sham. One that is not what it purports to be. A worthless imitation passed off as genuine. This is probably the one that's kind of, I would say, one of the most open-ended definitions and gets really muddled when it comes to where we are in 2021. News, a report of recent events. Previously unknown information, something having a specified influence or effect. That's part of the challenge in terms of where we are today. We used to, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we got our news from pretty much the same sources in the United States. Few papers, a few creditable papers, and a few TV or radio news sources. Now we are flooded with content, and being able to determine what's real, what's fake, what's news, what's opinion gets more and more difficult. So from Elvis's secret love children to Hillary Clinton adopting an alien baby to George Bush doing cocaine in the White House, these are kind of extreme, I would say, examples of fake news that I think most of us can say is not really true. And then what starts to happen is it starts to look even more true as we move on, especially in today's world of social media and Facebook. Pope Francis shocks the world by endorsing Donald Trump for president and releases a statement. So when I look at this statement, first thing I do is I look to see how extreme that headline is written. And then I also want to check the resource. So this was a Facebook post from the North Carolina for Donald Trump campaign. And then most recently with the whole stopping the steal. The steal is on in Pennsylvania. Poll watchers denied access, illegal campaigning at polling locations. So it can be worded, it can be designed in a way that it makes it feel and sound like it's real news, but it's not. It's fake news. What is fake news? False or misleading information presented as news. It often has the aim of damaging the reputation of a person or entity, or by making money through advertising revenue. How does false news spread?
There's a quote usually attributed to the writer Mark Twain that goes, "A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes." Funny thing about that, there's reason to doubt that Mark Twain ever said this at all, thus ironically proving the point. And today the quote, whoever said it, is truer than ever before. In previous decades, most media with global reach consisted of several major newspapers and networks which had the resources to gather information directly. Outlets like Reuters and the Associated Press that aggregate or re-report stories were relatively rare compared to today. The speed with which information spreads now has created the ideal conditions for a phenomenon known as circular reporting. This is when publication A publishes misinformation, publication B reprints it, and publication A then cites B as the source for the information. It's also considered a form of circular reporting when multiple publications report on the same initial piece of false information, which then appears to another author as having been verified by multiple sources. For instance, the 1998 publication of a single pseudoscientific paper arguing that routine vaccination of children causes autism inspired an entire anti-vaccination movement, despite the fact that the original paper has repeatedly been discredited by the scientific community. Deliberately unvaccinated children are now contracting contagious diseases that had been virtually eradicated in the United States, with some infections proving fatal. In a slightly less dire example, satirical articles that are formatted to resemble real ones can also be picked up by outlets not in on the joke. For example, a joke article in the reputable British Medical Journal entitled "Energy Expenditure in Adolescents Playing New Generation Computer Games" has been referenced in serious science publications over 400 times. User-generated content such as wikis are also a common contributor to circular reporting. As more writers come to rely on such pages for quick information, an unverified fact in a wiki page can make its way into a published article that may later be added as a citation for the very same wiki information, making it much harder to debunk. Recent advances in communication technology have had immeasurable benefits in breaking down the barriers between information and people. But our desire for quick answers may overpower the desire to be certain of their validity. And when this bias can be multiplied by billions of people around the world nearly instantaneously, more caution is in order. Avoiding sensationalist media, searching for criticisms of suspicious information, and tracing the original source of a report can help slow down a lie, giving the truth more time to put on its shoes.
A couple of things I like to kind of point out with that particular video and information here is, I think the desire for quick answers is something that in 2021 is something that people are looking for. We have no patience anymore, especially, I'm going to say, the younger generation. Okay, I'm going to be 55, so I feel like I've got one foot in each generation. But the sense of immediacy, the sense of I need to know now, I want my gratification now, comes into play. And when you don't have enough time to check your resources before you post that tweet or you share that information on Facebook, you're doing potential damage. I see this a lot with news anchors, whether it's a local news anchor or a national news anchor. Most of them have their own Twitter accounts. And because Twitter is instantaneous, meaning I can get on my Twitter account, post something, and I can share that with my 7,000 followers who then retweet it and share it with their followers, the information spreads almost instantly, as opposed to waiting, taking a deep breath, pausing, and checking out the information before you send that tweet. And I think news reporters can fall into this sometimes because the competition to get the news out first is what's driving a lot of this. My favorite quote: quotes found on the internet are not always accurate. Abraham Lincoln. So, some terms you should know: misinformation versus disinformation versus malinformation. Misinformation: false information that is spread regardless of whether there is intent to mislead. Disinformation: think of disinformation and deliberate. Both have D's. deliberately misleading or biased information, manipulated narratives or facts, propaganda. And malinformation, genuine information that is shared to cause harm. How do you know if a news story is true? If I agree with it. I run into this a lot. I run into this with my friends, with my family, with people on Facebook, and so on. People want to believe what they want to believe, whether it's true or not. So with misinformation, we're talking about unintentional mistakes, such as inaccurate photo captions, dates, statistics, translations, spreading false information that you think is true. Disinformation, fabricated or deliberately manipulated audio or visual content, intentionally created conspiracy theories or rumors. And then malinformation, which you're seeing, I think, more of a rise with, which is deliberate abuse of private information with the intent to harm or intimidate. For example, sharing someone's personal emails online. While this is not false information, it's distributed with mean intent, with the intent to harm.
Imagine a small village called Fernville that has residents, a government, and a newspaper. For generations, the newspaper was a trusted source of information with both good news and bad. At the edge of town, a river separates Fernville from Treetown, the next town over. Fernville residents wanted a bridge over the river, while Treetown residents were against it. The bridge became a subject of debate, and a decision needed to be made about building it. Normally, this kind of decision would be based on a shared understanding of the facts, like construction costs and timelines that were published in the paper. The facts gave everyone a foundation for forming their own opinions about the bridge. In the past, issues between towns were settled between town leaders in public meetings. This time, however, a few government leaders of Treetown who were against the bridge took a different approach. Instead of meetings and diplomacy, they decided to fool Fernville residents into rejecting the bridge. They created and distributed official-looking articles, documents, and advertisements that all had the same message. The bridge will cost 3 times what the estimates say. Leaders in Treetown repeated the same message in interviews and meetings. This information became widely shared in Fernville because it was surprising and provocative. But in reality, the messages were lies and exaggerations about the bridge's cost. This fooled Fernville residents, who trusted this new information like articles in their newspaper. It seemed so real to them. Soon, the citizens of Fernville decided against the bridge, and Treetown residents celebrated. They successfully manipulated Fernville into rejecting the bridge by spreading false information. This is called a disinformation campaign. Disinformation is false information that is published and shared with the goal to deceive people and cause them to support a particular person, issue, or organization that they may not otherwise support. The problem is that disinformation is based on lies and manipulation of facts. It causes people to lose trust in newspapers who report the information needed to make sound decisions. As in the bridge example, it can mean one town or country can unfairly control another and cause them to vote against their own interests. Today, disinformation is growing and becoming more difficult to detect. To avoid spreading it, use information from trustworthy sources like respected newspapers, journals, and well-known journalists. If the information seems misleading, research the writer and publisher and look for bias. Be skeptical of messages that seem exaggerated or provocative. By learning to detect and avoid disinformation, we can prevent others from unfairly manipulating our opinions and help facts and trusted information rise to the surface.
This reminds me of just a kind of a personal situation that I ran into with a friend of mine on Facebook. His name is John, and John posted something on Facebook that was not true. It was a lie. And I researched it. I read what he posted, and I thought, I don't know about this. So I researched it on various sites that I use, AP News, and some of these other sources that I'm going to share with you in a little bit. And I called him out on Facebook, and I very politely said to him, John, this is not true, and here's the proof. And I just said to him, the next time you're going to post something, if it's an opinion, state it as an opinion, word it as an opinion, but don't state it as fact, because what you're doing is manipulating people in order for those people to agree with you or to be on your side. One of my favorite terms that came out of over the last 4 years, alternative facts, a phrase used by U.S. Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway, during a Meet the Press interview on January 22nd, in which she defended White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer's false statement about the attendance numbers at Donald Trump's inauguration.
And you did not answer the question.
I did answer your question.
No, you did not. You did
Yes,
not answer the question of why the president asked the White House press secretary to come out in front of the podium for the first time and utter a falsehood. Why did he do that? It undermines the credibility of the entire White House press office on day one.
Don't be so overly dramatic about it, Chuck. You're saying it's a falsehood, and they're giving Sean Spicer, our press secretary, gave alternative facts to that. But the point remains.
Wait a minute. Alternative facts? Alternative facts, 4 of the 5 facts he uttered. The one thing he got right was Zeke Miller. 4 of the 5 facts he uttered were just not true. Look, alternative facts are not facts. They're falsehoods.
Clickbait. What is clickbait? On the internet, content whose main purpose is to attract attention and encourage visitors to click on a link to a particular web page. This is huge on the internet and is really a problem, especially when it comes to social media, because clicking on an article, clicking on a link is so easy to just take that for what it's worth. Was Amelia Earhart eaten by coconut crabs? Should you start drinking baking soda for weight loss? Why are teachers striking? The answer may surprise you. This outrageous truth about green gummy bears will destroy your world. He thought it was Bigfoot's skull, but then the experts told him this. This is clickbait. Its purpose is to lead you in with an extreme sensationalized headline just to get you to click on that link, so that when you click on that link and you're brought to that website, you see the advertisements on those websites and you absorb that information. Its purpose is simply, it's bait, it's phishing. There is an organization that I recently discovered called Stop Clickbait. Stop Clickbait is run by 70 people from around the world, and their job is they go through all this fake news. I wouldn't say fake news, but they go through a lot of this sensationalized clickbait links to see whether or not they're true and to summarize what this is all about. So let's go back here. So when I talked about, so they researched this article, and the clickbait was Amelia Earhart eaten by coconut crabs? The answer is no. Period. End of story. No reason to click on it. Should you start drinking baking soda for weight loss? No. Why are teachers striking? The answer may surprise you. Teachers were striking because they felt they were being underpaid, and their benefits were being taken away from them. So there's no surprise there, but again, they're trying to get you to click on it. This one just cracks me up. This outrageous truth about green gummy bears will destroy your world. No truth to it, but this one is the best one. He thought this was Bigfoot's skull. Well, it's not. It's a rock. That's it. So you want to check out this organization. They're called Stop Clickbait. They have an Instagram feed. They have a YouTube channel as well. I find it actually pretty funny, but they go through all this stuff for you so that you don't need to. Wiki. What is a wiki? A wiki is a website that allows collaborative editing of its content and structure by its users. A wiki is a clickable online publication that's collaborative and that it's edited and managed by its own audience directly using a web browser. You've heard of Wikipedia, WikiLeaks, and other types of wiki websites out there. Basically what that is, it is user content that is edited and managed by selected users. There's a whole criteria that if you want to be a wiki contributor, you have to meet a certain criteria. The most widely used wiki out there is Wikipedia. What is Wikipedia? Wikipedia is basically an online encyclopedia. And the content is created and is freely shared across the internet. It's supported by the nonprofit Wikimedia Foundation and is based on the model of openly editable content. So if you wanted to contribute to Wikipedia, you'd have to meet a certain criteria to be able to do that. I've got a video here that talks about Wikipedia, how it works in the background, and why it's one of the world's most popular websites and resources.
You've probably seen encyclopedias. Whether you're settling an argument or researching a school project, these books can hold the answers. These days, though, the world moves so fast, it's hard for books that were written months or years ago to keep up. Thankfully, we have a new kind of encyclopedia that's online, free, built by thousands of people, and changes every day. The idea that thousands of volunteers could create an online encyclopedia doesn't sound possible. But thanks to new technology and specific policies, Wikipedia has become one of the top 5 sites on the web. The site is run by a not-for-profit foundation with a goal to provide everyone on the planet access to the sum of all human knowledge. To see how it works, let's get started with the wiki in Wikipedia. A wiki is a kind of website that allows users to make changes to any page. They simply click Edit, make the change, and then save the page to share it with the world. This basic concept allows volunteers to contribute information on any subject in Wikipedia. And because Wikipedia is a website, there is no limit to the number of topics it can cover. Being a wiki means that Wikipedia is always changing. When someone notable passes away, Wikipedia is updated. When news breaks, Wikipedia grows. It all works because tens of thousands of volunteers contribute and also enforce rules to ensure Wikipedia remains a reliable source for factual information. These users, like any member, can see changes as they happen on each article. For example, if someone posts an advertisement on Wikipedia, which is forbidden, volunteers can easily reverse the change to maintain the article's integrity. This means every change to Wikipedia is reviewed and must abide by 2 big rules. The first is verifiability, which is necessary to ensure high quality. For this reason, Wikipedia articles must rely on information from published sources like books or newspapers, resources known for fact-checking. Requiring contributors to cite these resources in articles and quotations ensures Wikipedia articles are factual and high quality. If it's not verified, it can't be in Wikipedia. For example, you can write that the U.S. unemployment rate in 1935 was 20.1%, but you must also cite its source for it to remain in Wikipedia. In this case, numerous history books could be verifiable resources. The second rule requires a neutral point of view. All Wikipedia material must be presented fairly and without bias, just like any other encyclopedia. This means Wikipedia is not a place for contributors to share their own opinions. Let's say you're an advocate for vaccinations, and you write, "Every parent should get their children vaccinated." Unfortunately, this is biased and certain to cause disagreement. However, published opinions of experts can be included. For example, writing that vaccinating all U.S. children saves an estimated 33,000 lives and citing a reputable source is a statement of fact that can be verified. And if there is an opposing view, it should also be included to balance the article and keep it neutral. The article should present all the major opinions without endorsing one over the other. It's these two rules and the volunteers who uphold them that make Wikipedia a reliable resource that grows each day. And you can be involved. It's all part of the process of building a free encyclopedia, the largest encyclopedia in human history.
Bot. This is a term that you probably heard within the last 4 years or so. What is a bot? An internet bot, web robot, or simply bot is a software application that runs automated tasks over the internet. Typically, bots perform tasks that are simple and repetitive, much faster than a person could.
What is a bot? Put simply, bots are computer programs you typically interact with through written or spoken language that are meant to make your life a little easier. They take mundane tasks off your plate, such as reminding you to take an umbrella if it's going to rain, or to call your mom on her birthday. They can also take over other needlessly frustrating things like booking travel, remembering to pay your bills, or other communications that used to be relegated to annoying automated phone operators. Given the increasing trend of texting as a primary form of communication, these bots are infiltrating many fields such as customer service, banking, and healthcare. You may soon find that you're chatting with bots more often than your best friends. But bots are nothing new and date back to the early beginnings of computing. The earliest chatbot was programmed at MIT in 1964. Its name was Eliza, and it simplistically simulated a chat with a psychiatrist. Today, there are a wide array of high-powered bots, such as Apple's Siri, IBM's Watson, Amazon's Alexa, and Microsoft's Cortana. While these bots are the best of the best and run on cutting-edge artificial intelligence programming, the ones you're likely going to chat with inside Messenger apps will be much simpler. So how do these bots work? All bots require input from the user. How they respond to that information depends on their complexity. Chatbots typically scan text looking for phrases or words that the bot is programmed to recognize and respond to accordingly. These bots are fairly simple and can be easily derailed by statements made out of context or common human errors, such as unusual sentence structure or spelling mistakes. Learning natural language is tough work, whether you're a baby or a bot, and it takes time for the chatbots to become fully conversational and recognize online shorthand. Some bots even take the easy road, offering only a limited number of responses to choose from. Smarter bots use a more sophisticated natural language processing system and are much better at identifying the different elements in a sentence and understanding how they relate. Some of these smarter bots can even learn from their interactions with people. The more communication they have with the users, the more natural their chat interactions become. The most sophisticated bots can also learn from social media interactions, news articles, or other text-based stories in an attempt to learn context, history, and ethics. So when will these bots become my new best friend? Whether we're talking about complex AIs or simple bots that just tell you the weather, chatbots are foreseen as the future of how we use our phone, especially as they become a bigger part of the world's most popular messenger apps. If you've tried talking to one of these chatbots, you may have discovered that they're currently pretty poor conversationalists. As you can imagine, building a truly successful chatbot is as difficult as trying to compile all of human history into a simple book. So it's not likely that these bots will be replacing a living, breathing, and most importantly, thinking human being anytime soon. But with billions of users spending more and more time on messenger apps, the only thing that's certain is that the bots are coming.
Okay, so if you have a smartphone or a tablet, let's just say I've got my iPhone here. The iPhone has a bot service called Siri. So I can speak into my phone and say, "Hey Siri, what's the weather like today?" And Siri will, the bot, that software will answer me with today's weather forecast and so on. If I say, "Hey Siri, when was Abraham Lincoln born?" the bot, the Siri bot in my iPhone, accesses the internet, looks to see where Abraham or when Abraham Lincoln was born, brings that information back, and then says it to me. That's a bot, or an example of a bot. Another example, and this is where it gets really annoying, is you might be dealing with bots on the phone or on the internet. If you do your banking online, and you have a question, lots of times I'll be on my bank's website and I have a question. I want to ask somebody online in that bank a question. They have a little chat feature, and I go into that chat feature and I type my question. Depending on the website and whether or not they use bots, if I type in my questions and say, how do I open a checking account? Bot software can read that basic information. How do I open a checking account? It reads the words, understands the sentence, and then comes back with a general answer. Okay, it's not very deep. It's kind of a shallow answer, but it gets me to where I want. That saves that bank time and money because they don't have to employ somebody to answer simple questions for you. But if you have a more complicated question and you type it into chat, if you're dealing with a bot, the bot can't understand it, and therefore may ask you other questions to try to get you to kind of dumb down your question. So what I have done in the past, and sometimes you can't tell if you're chatting with a bot or if you're chatting with a real person, a real human being. So if I type in a question and I get an answer that's kind of generic, usually it's a bot. So what I will do in order to talk to a real human being in a chat feature on a website is I will just type in just gobbledygook into it. I'll type in a sentence that makes absolutely no sense. The bot can't understand the sentence. And the next thing you know, the bot will say, let me connect you to a customer representative. And then now I'm talking to somebody who's real and can answer my question. So that's a bot. A bot does simple tasks for you that a human doesn't need to do for you. And they're getting more and more sophisticated. And that leads into Russian bots. You may have heard this term during the 2016 campaign and the election. When Russian trolls, Russian bots, Putin bots, Kremlin bots, troll factories, troll farms, basically what this is state-sponsored anonymous internet political commentators and trolls that can sway your opinion, can make stuff up, can provide you information that you want to hear. And it's all computer generated. There's a human being generating this information, but based on what you type in Facebook or an ad that you click on or something that you click on in social media, lots of that content is created by bots. And its goal in this particular case, the Russian bots that were created, and this has been I would say a fact in terms of every political FBI, CIA, blah, 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 they all agree that Russia meddled in the election. And one of the ways they did this is through these Russian bots. Conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory is a belief that some covert but influential person or organization is responsible for a circumstance or event. Conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or situation that invokes a conspiracy, often political in motivation, when other explanations are more probable.
Donald Trump built his political career on a conspiracy theory, the idea that President Obama was not born in the United States. Trump repeatedly pushed the idea in interviews and on social media long after it was disproved.
Why doesn't he show his birth certificate? And I have my own theory on Obama. It's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics.
But it's not the only conspiracy theory he's indulged. On the campaign trail and in the White House, he's toyed with some outlandish ideas. That Ted Cruz's father might be involved in the Kennedy assassination.
His father was with Lee Harvey Oswald. What was he doing with Lee Harvey Oswald shortly before the death, before the shooting?
Did anybody ever deny that it was the father? They're not saying, oh, that wasn't really my father. It's a little hard to do because it looks like him.
That Marco Rubio might not be eligible to run for president, an argument no constitutional scholar supported.
You're really not sure that Marco Rubio is eligible to run for president? I don't know. I've never looked at it, George. Honestly, I've never looked at it. Somebody said he's not, and I retweeted it.
That routine vaccinations cause autism, a theory scientists have long debunked.
The child, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back, and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic.
We have extremely well-documented proof that there's no autism associated with vaccinations.
That Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia might have been murdered.
Scalia, was he murdered? I know it's pretty brutal to say that.
It's a horrible topic, but they say they found a pillow on his face, which is a pretty unusual place to find a pillow. I can't tell you what, I can't give you an answer.
That Muslims in New Jersey cheered after 9/11, a claim no one has ever substantiated.
And I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering.
And the other side of New Jersey, where you have large Arab populations, they were cheering as the World Trade Center came down.
That millions of Americans voted illegally in 2016, a claim with no factual support.
Does the president believe that millions voted illegally in this election?
He continues to maintain that belief based on studies and evidence that people have presented to him.
What evidence do you have?
As I said, I think the president has believed that for a while based on studies and information he has.
That climate change is a hoax.
All of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax. I mean, it's a money-making industry, okay?
That Russian meddling in the 2016 election is a hoax. And according to a recent New York Times report, that the Access Hollywood video of him admitting to grabbing women's genitals is a hoax, even though he apologized for it when it came out.
I said it, I was wrong, and I apologize.
It's not clear how much Trump really believes these ideas. He's backed down from some in the past.
Barack Obama was born in the United States, period.
Only to indulge them again later. Some of the theories have helped Trump politically by tearing down rivals or creating doubt about policies he opposes. Others have hurt him, as polls show voters increasingly question his judgment. But one thing is clear. Donald Trump is not going to stop talking about conspiracy theories.
Deep fakes. What is a deep fake? Deep fakes are what's known as synthetic media, in which a person in an existing image or video is replaced by someone else's likeness.
Hello. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a new technology that's affecting famous people. Remember when Obama called Trump a dipshit?
Complete dipshit.
Or the time Kim Kardashian rapped?
Because I'm always half naked.
Or when Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonated himself?
Get out of this, the bomb in there. Get out!
Deepfake, deepfake, deepfake.
Gotta be kidding.
This is a deepfake too. I'm not Adele, but I am an expert in online manipulation. So deepfakes is a term that's used to describe video or audio files that have been created using artificial intelligence.
My favorite is probably Lisa Vanderpump.
It started as a very basic face swapping technology, and now it's turned into film-level CGI. There's been this huge explosion of like, oh my goodness, we can't trust anything. Yes, deepfakes are eerily dystopian, and they're only going to get more realistic and cheaper to make. But the panic around them is overblown. In fact, the alarmist hype is possibly more dangerous than the technology itself. Let me break this down. First, what everyone is freaking out about is actually not new. It's a much older phenomenon that I like to call the weaponization of context, or shallow fakes, with Photoshop and video editing software.
There's so many needs.
How about the time Nancy Pelosi appeared to be drunk while giving a speech?
But you never know with this president of the United States.
Turns out that video was just slowed down at 75%.
It was very strange.
You can have a really simplistic piece of misleading content that can do huge damage. For example, in the lead up to the midterms, we saw lots of imagery around this caravan of people who were moving towards the US. This photo was shared with captions demonizing the so-called migrant caravan at the US-Mexico border in 2018. But a reverse image search showed it was actually Pakistani refugees in Greece. You don't need deep fakes, AI technology to manipulate emotions or to spread misinformation. This brings me to my second point. What we should be really worried about is the liar's dividend. The lies and actions people will get away with by exploiting widespread skepticism to their own advantage. So remember the Access Hollywood tape that emerged a few weeks before the 2016 election?
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want.
Around that time, Trump apologized, but then more recently, he's actually said, oh, I'm not sure if I actually said that. When anything can be fake, it becomes much easier for the guilty to dismiss the truth as fake. What really keeps me awake at night is less the technology, it's how we as a society respond to the idea that we can't trust what we see or what we hear. So if we are fear-mongering, if we are hyperbolic, if we are waving our hands in the air, that itself can be part of the problem. You can see where this road leads. As public trust in institutions like the media, education, and elections dwindles, then democracy itself becomes unsustainable. The way that we respond to this serious issue is critical. Partly this is the platforms thinking very seriously about what they do with this type of content, how they label this kind of content. Partly it's the public recognizing their own responsibility. And if you don't know 100% hand on heart, this is true, please don't share, because it's not worth the risk.
Five ways you can spot fake news.
Have to become digital detectives. The first is, where is this information coming from? A lot of fake news sites try to create a URL which is similar to a URL of a publication that you might know and you might be familiar with. Ultimately, the best way to understand whether or not a site is trustworthy is to actually read the content on the site. Not just one article on it, but other articles, and see, do they meet the standards of quality journalism? And if it makes you really angry or really sad or it makes you burst out laughing, that's actually a red flag to you, because it's kind of short-circuiting your logic center or your ability to think. I can look up the author of that article. I can see the other things that they've written. Is there an author of the article? Because that's an important tip in helping us figure out whether or not this piece of information is actually real and trustworthy. If I read something that says, scientists say that chocolate cake makes you smarter. Well, what scientists? And what exactly did they say? One of the ways in which rumor spreads is that a lot of people keep repeating the same information, but nobody has verified it. So journalists depend on high quality sources, so experts. How did you come across this information? How do you know that this information is true? Someone takes that photo that maybe 3 years ago and say, this is happening right now. We saw a lot of that during the recent hurricanes. Using a reverse image search on Google can tell you where that image has appeared before and who has shared it. That can give you important tips as to whether or not the image is original, whether or not the image is in its original context. This is what we have to do. We try to drill down a little bit deeper than that first tweet that tells you that chocolate cake makes you smarter.
I think one takeaway that I get from this is and this is something I think we forget about, is the idea of repetition. Just because something is said multiple times by multiple people doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. So just some tips on how you can spot fake news. First, consider the source. Click away from the story to investigate the site, its mission, and its content. Finding out who the source is and where this is from and a background on that source is important. Check the author. Do a quick search on the author. Are they credible? Are they real? Check the date. That is really important, okay? Lots of fake news spreads because it's something that it might have been news 6 years ago, and then it's re-reported as new news, and it's not necessarily true. Check your biases. Consider if your own beliefs could affect your judgment. I think this is probably the #1 thing, and the hardest thing for people to do is you have your own beliefs, you believe what you believe, but when you're reading something, when you're absorbing that information, think about that. Read beyond the headlines. Again, a lot of these headlines are clickbait. Its sole purpose is for you to click on it. Check out any supporting sources for that particular article. Is it a joke? There is a very famous website. It's called The Onion, and it's all satire, and it's hilarious. But the way the articles are written and the headlines are written, it comes across as, in many cases, it comes across sounding real. And ask the experts. I'm going to share with you some fact-checking websites for you to look at. Truth and post-truth. Truth. I think, therefore I am. Post-truth. I believe, therefore I'm right. Okay, some resources for you. It's really hard to know if what you just read is accurate. Did the president really say that? Is Elvis still alive? Does a story say a source is claiming something you just can't believe? Here are 5 very popular resources that you can use to help check facts and find out whether this information is correct. And if you're on social media, and let's face it, social media, the goal of social media is to share information, whether it's personal information, photos and videos of friends and family, or it's to share articles and news. So, PolitiFact from the Poynter Institute. PolitiFact is perhaps the most recognized and award-winning resources and fact-checking websites out there. It rates the accuracy of claims by elected officials and others on what they call its truthometer. And you can go to PolitiFact.com to look it up, to search for articles, and to see whether or not something is accurate or not. The Washington Post has a very interesting resource. It's called their Fact Checker. Fact Checker is a weekly review of what's true, false, or in between in politics from the Post's famous fact-checking team. Here is a short video on the Washington Post Fact Checker system. You can go to WashingtonPost.com/news/fact-checker.
Well, when the Washington Post fact checker examined this claim, they gave it 4 Pinocchios.
4 Pinocchios, which is the worst rating possible.
In 2015 alone, without my even asking, you gave me no fewer than 8 Pinocchios.
The Pinocchios are an easy way for readers to understand our bottom line assessment of the accuracy of a claim. And we have Pinocchios that range from a Geppetto checkmark, not a Pinocchio, but that means it's factually accurate, all the way up to 4 Pinocchios, which are for whoppers. Politicians are generally terrified of the Pinocchios.
A quick response. I can't let that stand. She's been given 4 Pinocchios for that as well.
And they gave Schumer four Pinocchios.
President Trump is an unusual politician in that he does not drop a false claim, even though it has been fact-checked as false. And if he likes a particular thing that he says, he will keep saying it, not once, not twice, dozens upon dozens of times. The bottomless Pinocchio is when a politician refuses to drop a claim that has been fact-checked as 3 or 4 Pinocchios, keeps saying it over and over and over again, so that it basically becomes disinformation, propaganda.
It's said now that our economy is the strongest it's ever been in the history of our country. And except for one senator who came into a room at 3 o'clock in the morning and went like that, we would have had health care too.
We need the wall. We've started building the wall. I will tell you, I've had the head of U.S. Steel called me the other day, and he said, we're opening up 6 major facilities. Our country lost last year $817 billion in terms of deficit. We had
$450 billion worth of things ordered from a very rich country, Saudi Arabia.
There's no Russia. It was all made up by the Democrats.
The Mexican border is very unprotected by our laws. We have horrible, horrible, and very unsafe laws in the United States.
False! Where are the fact checkers? Where are the fact checkers? Pinocchio! Snopes. Snopes has been around for quite some time. Snopes is a fact-checking website. It has been described as a well-regarded reference for sorting out myths and rumors on the internet. I would say Snopes is probably the #1 fact-checking website when it comes to things on the internet, things shared on the internet. It has also been seen as a source for validating and debunking urban legends and similar stories in American popular culture. You can go to Snopes.com. When you ask a question, if you ask a question into Google, whether it's a myth or something like that, Snopes.com usually comes up in the Google list because they do that fact checking. News Literacy Project. I just recently learned about this. They're the ones who created the video that you saw of the man explaining how you can recognize fake news. The News Literacy Project is a nonpartisan national education nonprofit, and it provides resources and programs for educators and the public to teach, learn, and share the abilities needed to be smart, active consumers of news and information. It's becoming more and more difficult as we've kind of gone through today to determine what's fake and what's not. Their website is newslit.org. The other and last resource is Poynter. The Poynter Institute for Media Studies is a nonprofit journalism school and research organization located in St. Petersburg, Florida. The school is the owner of the Tampa Bay Times newspaper and the International Fact-Checking Network, and operates PolitiFact. So, how to choose your news.
How do you know what's happening in your world? The amount of information just a click away may be limitless, but the time and energy we have to absorb and evaluate it is not. All the information in the world won't be very useful unless you know how to read the news. To your grandparents, parents, or even older siblings, this idea would have sounded strange. Only a few decades ago, news was broad-based. Your choices were limited to a couple of general interest magazines and newspapers of record, and 3 or 4 TV networks, where trusted newscasters delivered the day's news at the same reliable time every evening. But the problems with this system soon became apparent as mass media spread. While it was known that authoritarian countries controlled and censored information, a series of scandals showed that democratic governments were also misleading the public, often with media cooperation. Revelations of covert wars, secret assassinations, and political corruption undermined public faith in official narratives presented by mainstream sources. This breakdown of trust in media gatekeepers led to alternative newspapers, radio shows, and cable news competing with the major outlets and covering events from various perspectives. More recently, the internet has multiplied the amount of information and viewpoints, with social media, blogs, and online video turning every citizen into a potential reporter. But if everyone is a reporter, nobody is, and different sources may disagree not only on opinions, but on the facts themselves. So how do you get the truth, or something close? One of the best ways is to get the original news unfiltered by middlemen. Instead of articles interpreting a scientific study or a politician's speech, you can often find the actual material and judge for yourself. For current events, follow reporters on social media. During major events such as the Arab Spring or the Ukrainian protests, newscasters and bloggers have posted updates and recordings from the midst of the chaos. Though many of these later appear in articles or broadcasts, keep in mind that these polished versions often combine the voice of the person who was there with the input of editors who weren't. At the same time, the more chaotic the story, the less you should try to follow it in real time. In events like terrorist attacks and natural disasters, today's media attempts continuous coverage even when no reliable new information is available, sometimes leading to incorrect information or false accusations of innocent people. It's easy to be anxious in such events, but try checking for the latest information at several points in the day rather than every few minutes, allowing time for complete details to emerge and false reports to be refuted. While good journalism aims for objectivity, media bias is often unavoidable. When you can't get the direct story, read coverage in multiple outlets, which employ different reporters and interview different experts. Tuning into various sources and noting the differences lets you put the pieces together for a more complete picture. It's also crucial to separate fact from opinion. Words like think, likely, or probably mean that the outlet is being careful, or worse, taking a guess. And watch out for reports that rely on anonymous sources. These could be people who have little connection to the story, or have an interest in influencing coverage, their anonymity making them unaccountable for the information they provide. Finally, and most importantly, try to verify news before spreading it. While social media has enabled the truth to reach us faster, it's also allowed rumors to spread before they can be verified, and falsehoods to survive long after they've been refuted. So before you share that unbelievable or outrageous news item, do a web search to find any additional information or context you might have missed, and what others are saying about it. Today, we are more free than ever from the old media gatekeepers who used to control the flow of information. But with freedom comes responsibility. The responsibility to curate our own experience and ensure that this flow does not become a flood, leaving us less informed than before we took the plunge.
Okay. This is one of my favorite charts. And this is something I keep on my desktop all the time as a reminder of where I'm getting my news from. So it's kind of visually kind of cluttered here, but I'll explain it. The news organizations at the top and in the middle are considered by most as dependable news sources. Hold on. Dependable news sources. AP News, Reuters, PBS, and so on. Long regarded as being reputable sources for content and for news. And as we get further down away from the top and we start to spread between to the left and the right, we start to become a little bit more liberal, a little bit more conservative. So it starts to get slanted. It starts to become opinion as opposed to fact. So I get my news sources from multiple news sources. I deliberately made a conscious decision, I'd say probably 5 years ago, to get my news from multiple sources. So I get my news from AP, I get it from Fox, I get it from CBS, I get it from the BBC, I get it from PBS, but I stay away from Breitbart, and I stay away from BuzzFeed and the Daily Beast. Okay, I might read an article from them and I might click on it or something like that, but I'm not necessarily going to absorb it as being the unfiltered truth. So the Washington Times is different than the Washington Post. Washington Post is considered by most but again, it slightly slants left. Okay, where the Wall Street Journal, the National Review, the Hill, slightly right. But again, still in the top portion of being considered reputable and honest. So I recommend you can actually go to this website, mediabiaschart.com. If you want to print this out, I literally had this on my desktop as a reminder of where my news is coming from. One of my favorite news sources is the BBC News at night on PBS, on the 6 o'clock news from the BBC News. What I love about the BBC News at 6 o'clock at night is that it actually gives me world news. I get news and stories about stuff that I will not get on ABC and CBS and on Fox, because all of those programs are interrupted by commercials. We all probably watch the nightly news. And if you were to add up how much news you actually get out of the half hour of news, you probably get about 15 minutes of news. And again, I have a tendency to think that some of those reporters are kind of sensationalize the news, put their own personal spin on it, where I'm a big fan of BBC, I'm a big fan of PBS News. I find them to be impartial, right down the middle, and they just tell me the news without any fluff. So if you're interested, I would recommend checking out the BBC News at 6 o'clock. Okay, lastly, just to wrap things up, what is your responsibility? What is my responsibility? Be responsible. Much of the responsibility falls on us. Seeking the truth requires effort, and that is the challenge. Just don't take something for what it is. Do your part. Is it fact or is it your opinion? Is it fact or someone else's opinion? Don't be lazy. Do your homework. It's very easy to click on an article, read it, and pass it along on social media with your friends without fully doing the research to know whether or not this information is actually accurate. Balance. Like I said earlier, I specifically, deliberately made a decision 5 years ago to get my news from multiple sources: conservative, liberal, and middle. And I get that information, I filter it through and decide when I read that content from these different sources, is it accurate? Are they saying the same thing? Is it balanced? And this is a tough one. Admit when you were wrong. Okay. There's been lots of times where I've believed something, or I might have even sent something on social media where I was flat out wrong, and people have called me out for it. And I will admit it. So there's nothing wrong with being wrong. Just own up to it. And lastly, keep an open mind. Again, we all have our own belief system. We believe what we want to believe, but keep an open mind. Listen to other people's opinions. Okay, I'm going to wrap up there. I want to thank St. John's for having me. And real quick, if you want to contact me, if you've got any questions, if you need any computer or technology help, you can visit my website, danielteaches.com. You can also call me at 585-902-8450, or you can email me at daniel@danielteaches.com. Okay, Jen.
I don't see any questions in the chat, but we're opening it up for everyone. If you have any questions, send them our way. It was a great presentation. Learned a lot.
I think my main takeaway that I hope you get from this is just to think about it, just to not just take it for what it's worth, but really do a little bit of homework, especially if you're going to share this information with family and friends.
Sure, those resources you gave were new to me, so I think that's a great tip that you gave to look at those sites. Yep.
No questions, no comments? Wow.
You covered the topic thoroughly.
Someone's raising it. Looks like Bonnie's raising her hand. I don't know if
Okay, Bonnie, put it in the chat if you would. Put it in the chat, yeah.
Bonnie, you're muted.
Peggy, yeah, everyone's muted, but Peggy Lyons asked about Fox News. I wonder, she said really, I think she's probably wondering, is it really biased? Maybe that's what she's asking.
I'm not sure what she's asking.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jane.
Well,
I also
yeah, go ahead.
I'll say this too, and so I'll just kind of relate it to this Fox News comment here. Whether you watch Fox News or don't watch Fox News, the one other reason I watch Fox News is I want to see what they're reporting. Okay, so I try to keep balanced. So again, I try to listen to multiple sides, but more importantly, I'm interested to see what these news sources are actually saying, to see if what they're saying is accurate or not, or if it's misinformation, or I should say disinformation.
Would you say, Daniel, it's probably not an all or nothing, right, too? So
yeah, I mean, there's people that only watch Fox News because that's what they believe in. They are absorbing what they want to hear. There are people who only watch CNN, okay? And they're only absorbing what CNN offers. And what I'm saying is listen to both. Observe both.
Somebody's asking for that Washington Post fact-checking link again.
Yeah, let's see.
And everyone, Daniel will have the slides, so you'll have that as reference for a lot of the links that he shared, as well as a recording of the session today. So if we're not able to get all those pieces of information,
I will provide Jennifer with slides from today, and that she'll distribute that to you all in a follow-up email. Oh, so here's some of the comments here. Thank you, Jane. I thought Fox News was totally unreliable. Okay. Could you give the website? What email that we received this week should we have used? Had trouble getting in because of that.
Yes. So the only reason that you might have trouble is if it's caught in your spam. So, I encourage folks to check there if they didn't get the email. We sent out 2 emails to registrants unless you registered late. So for those that registered after Friday, there would only be one email that you would receive. We sent one yesterday to confirm, but sometimes spam filters, tie those up. And we only have the email address you gave us, so that's all we can use to get in touch with you. But you can always connect with Dawn, by phone if you had questions. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look at the individual case, Mary, but always a phone call if you need it. But check the email. There will be probably a couple days it will take because we wait till the recording's done. So we'll send out the email and follow up to this session within a couple of days. So you'll get that. And then if you signed up for the next session, you'll get another email as well for that.
Thank you, Peggy. Awesome, thanks. This has been great. This is a great group. Hopefully you'll be joining us this same time next week for music. We'll talk everything about music and what your options are for listening to music over the internet, on your smart devices, and so on.
And if you're not signed up just go ahead to the website and sign up. We'll have you join us for the next webinar of the series.
It looks like someone wrote here, I do watch more than one source and try to discern the facts by finding common threads. Yep. Is this a good way to separate facts from opinions? I would agree with that. I mean, again, if I'm watching, again, I'm going to pick CNN and Fox because they're considered kind of extreme from a lot of people's point of view, liberal, conservative. If they're saying the same thing, okay, I kind of take it as fact. But again, I'm going to watch other sources as well. But if they're saying completely opposite things, then I'm thinking, okay, something's going on here. Something's not making sense. And this is where I go down the middle of the road to AP News, to PBS, to Reuters, to Washington Post, New York Times. But then there might be some of you that might say, well, the Washington Post is a liberal rag. Okay, well, that's where it comes into opinion. I'm going to go based on the history of that publication, that source, are they credible? Have they been credible throughout the years? Do they make mistakes? Of course they do. We all make mistakes. But do they own up to them and do they correct them? Balance. It's all about balance. Okay. Thanks, Jen.
That was good. Yeah, thanks everyone. And look out for the emails and hopefully we'll see you at the next session.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.